things I've lost along the way, I'll never find again. It's easy to believe that you get to write for free.
90 Tage Hörbücher gratis. Fetzt. Mit diesem Angebot kannst du den ganzen
On a day just like today, I drove to the ocean, looked out at the sea. I started to wonder if I could ever be free. As free as the ocean.
Hello there and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre, and today we have another informal, casual hangout that we call What Are You Reading? And usually you'll have the poster behind me, but I'm at a new location. We'll change locations every week. And this happened to be the location where an author that I very much like, Koveri Matavan, visited us with her novel The Tainted, which is a wonderful book about a woman that falls in love with an Indian man in India. She comes from a privileged family, a British family, and it's a wonderful book. The author Koveri Matavan will be coming back to us, I think, next month. You guys got to look at the calendar. So I highly recommend this book. Hello, YouTube. Kitten is here, and Roxy, hello. And here in the room, or in Irish India, as we call it, because Koveri is in Ireland, the author. She's originally from India. Shyla, hello, and Deb Mercury. And the book club manager has changed his name. This is still the book club manager. His name is now just another Shut In. I have no idea why he does these things, but we're not here to talk about management. We're here to talk about books. I have a few things to. I have one thing to read from a book that I'm reading right now. But let's start maybe with Shyla. What are you reading?
Now, I'm reading that Proust was not a neuroscientist, and I'm learning more about Whitman and George Eliot, and one of the things I learned about Whitman is that during the Civil War, he was a nurse, and he was the first to really believe in phantom pain.
Sorry, I couldn't understand the name. Who?
Whitman.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Walt Whitman. And in fact, it's been Memorial Day, and so I've been reading from Whitman's Drum Taps, this poem called Wound Dresser. I highly recommend it. It's a longer poem, so I won't read it here. But it really captures, I think Whitman does so well at capturing the moment. And, in this case, in this poem, The Wound Dresser, some of the gruesome aspects of war. But in so doing, and this is something the book points out, he also talks about, like, who is braver. And they are both brave, like both sides are braver. One is not braver than the other, and one does not have more pain than the other. We all feel these things around war, but this idea, it's always bothered me, and this isn't in the book, it's just me, that in sports or in war, we pray to a God who apparently takes sides.
Yeah, that's when you say we, I'm gonna exclude myself because
Me too.
I don't do that, and you don't either. And human beings are human beings. War is the absence of humanity, and war is people fighting and killing each other uh, on behalf of today nation states and on behalf of leaders who put people in there as material um, to further a goal, and the people who kill the other people, the soldiers in the field, they have no grievances with this other human being. So those grievances are grievances of nation states and other geopolitical interests. Now, yeah, I don't want to get too off the rails, but the everything else is war propaganda, pretty much, I
Yeah,
think.
I can read you a part of this.
But let me just briefly say Walt
Huh.
Whitman, for our non-American audience, was a famous poet. He lived from 1819 to 1892, and so he was, of course, alive during the Civil War. Um, and maybe you want to add a couple words what Walt Whitman means to you, or
He's a huge influence on me, and when I'm reading, Proust was a neuroscientist. You know, things I think I felt about him are becoming very concrete. Like, when you look at his Song of Self, this is a celebration of the wholeness and the individuality at the same time.
hmm
It basically is to me in parts this kind of list of all the different kinds of people there are
hmm
and the unity between all of us and how he captures the individual and the whole. Now, I'm noticing in his publication, because I'm reading that to drum taps now, I'm going through it. Um, I notice there his real, like in the wound dresser, he wants to take the place of these young men. He's
hmm
older than most of the young people on the battlefront.
hmm
And he talks about, there's a line in here that says, a one turns to me his appealing eyes. Poor boy, I never knew you, yet I think I could not refuse this moment to die for you if that would save you.
Wow.
And this kind of
Empathy.
empathy.
Empathy. We go back to the theme of empathy, and what you said earlier, if I understand you correctly, what appeals to you is that he can celebrate the individual and stress the importance of the individual, but within the collective of humanity.
Yes. And I mean, that's the ultimate goal, really. And when he, talks about uh, his service in the Civil War as a nurse, he is well known for having served both sides equally. Like, he did not feel when Confederate soldiers were brought to Union hospitals that they should have to wait any more than they should be triaged in the same way that a Union soldier would, and that is how he did it.
Mm.
This I'm sorry, there's a lawnmower going back here, but that is where I find his humanity. He was, he questioned science, I think, because science at that time, like the bell curve, was actually something, phrenology was something, but this idea that you could explain everything with science. So, why people were slaves, there was this scientific explanation, and he rejected that.
hmm
He rejected that completely. And I think it's very hard to go against the science of the day, no
Of the
matter
time. Yeah, absolutely. I was
of the
just gonna
time.
say, because usually we have this tendency, and I have that too, when we excuse certain behaviors, right? Or like, I mean, with sort of race science and eugenics and things like that. When I mean, I caught myself excusing people that whose work I really admire and cherish, and then I realized, oh my God, they had really problematic views on some of these issues, or like women issues. I admit that I use the phrase, well, these were different times. But when you really think about it, yeah, okay, it takes some courage, but let's be honest. I mean, a person who a person with deep empathy and I don't know if moral is the right term, is also a problematic term, but how can you defend some of this stuff? I mean, I don't know. E-
Well,
e-
and I think that
Even if you're surrounded, even if that's the norm of the day, of the culture, uh, I think when you're a writer, especially when you're a writer, and this again, I'm excited about this book. I ordered it for 2.99 plus shipping, used. Proust was a neuroscientist, because a writer, the job of a writer is to have their ear to the pulse, and not anticipate the future so much of where culture is going, but certainly just feel things more deeply, and feel things of other people. I mean, that's what a writer does. A writer teleports into the mind of tons of other people.
yeah, I think that's true, and I think a lot of people think some of what I write is very dark, and it is. But I think it's important to me, and it humanizes things to realize that that there is a connection. Like there are things happening that create very dark places for
Yeah,
people.
absolutely. I mean, they create dark. Life is, um God, I should have this in front of me, because it's actually related to the excerpt that I wanted to read from, let me zoom in here, from Roberto Alta's Seven Madmen, which is about a person, Erdogan, who is in Buenos Aires in 1929, and he feels he's a loser, and this is all his interior monologue, and he suffers from a bad job and a bad marriage, and he feels bored, and he feels laughed at, and all sorts of things. And his interior monologue is so full of pain, um, and he articulates this pain. Oh, here, yeah, Charles Baudelaire is cited in the introduction,
Oh,
um, and from a poem called "The Journey," and it says, "Today, yesterday, and tomorrow, life is an oasis of horror in a desert of tedium." So, yeah, that's pretty rough stuff, but let's be honest, it kind of is. And that doesn't mean you need to be depressed and jump off a bridge.
no, but I think also Whitman does this in a very positive light. So I don't. And I was told once by a creative writing teacher to write the sad story, the story with a sad ending is easy. To give
Hmm.
it a happy ending is hard. And maybe that happy ending is not the right way to go. We want to believe, and I think we talk about capitalism all the time. Capitalism always projects this happy ending, and that's what everybody strives for, is this happy ending, and that is not always realistic. In fact, I think in life There are
Absolutely
lots
not.
of unhappy endings, and if
Absolutely
we
not.
can't figure out how to deal with them, we get stuck there, you know? We
Absolutely.
get
Absolutely. And that is actually that's a great point, that if we don't learn to deal with them, we get stuck there. Um, I don't know. This is a discussion that I have so often about reading. And I was at one of those little free libraries in the suburbs when I visited my dad. And there's this guy, and I'm talking, and he looks at the library books, and he takes one out that I just put in because I put stuff in there. And we start talking about what we read, and he says, well, at the end of the day, I want to wind down, and I need time to wind down, and so I'm picking up like a crime novel and guilty pleasure. And he halfway apologizes to me as if I already if I already sort of, I don't know, if I project this air of some elitist, like, what are you reading? You shouldn't read this garbage. But anyway, he says, well, and I know exactly what's coming, and it's basically he's basically describing the book version of a Law and Order episode. And I'm not judging him, but I had a great conversation because I suggest to him, why do you feel you need to wind down with this kind of stuff? I mean, does it what does it do to you? And he says, yeah, after a stressful day, that gives me sort of discomfort. But and then I say to him, does it open new channels? Does it provide any insight into the nature of life and such? And he says, well, no, not really. And then of course the question is that what do you want from books or poetry or plays, right? That's and probably a lot of people, and I'm not judging them, would say what I want from them is comfort. But I mean, it's not me. There's a consensus among uh, many writers of stuff that is maybe a little bit harder to digest than the latest Stephen King novel. And I don't want to, God, now I mentioned Stephen King. I actually have a lot of respect for Stephen King, and I think he transports much deeper things than just simple sort of, thrills of like a carnival ride or something. I mean, there's a lot of depth in what he does. I should have mentioned a different name. How about Nora Roberts or David Baldacci? But you get my point. Uh, we talked about this with Rick Harsh, independent publisher. It really is a question of what you expect from engaging with the written word. Do you expect unexpected challenges that challenge your perception? Do you want to be put into the mind of a person that does bad things, or uh, do you want to be challenged and made? Do you want to feel uncomfortable? And my answer to that is yes, because not because I want to feel uncomfortable all the time, but if a story is not portraying the layers of life, and life is full of pain, then I'm just not, then I'm basically bored. Okay, shall I occupied the room? Deb said something.
Deb says happy endings build false hopes. It's okay to have them, but our youth needs the real so they can work out solutions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I mean, in many cultures, fairy tales don't have happy endings, they have lessons. I had a friend tell me a a fairy tale, and I'll do it short. That they would that was something they was natural to their culture, and it was about a guy who carried milk to a school, and one day a a bird flew overhead and dropped some poison in the milk, and the poison killed all the kids. And so the guy goes and prays and says, "Why would you do this? Everybody's blaming him." And uh, oh, she dropped this snake venom in there.
Hmm.
And in the end, there's not a real resolution except that going forward, like the kids don't come back to life, it's just going forward, they will put a lid on the milk
Hmm.
to prevent, and that's the essence of this story is to say, I guess, if something goes wrong, adjust.
Hmm. Hmm.
But this other idea of you can't take it back. Like when I listen, and I don't know what a kid hears. I'm not a kid anymore. I didn't hear it as a kid. But when I listen to it, I think also that sometimes things go really wrong, and there's no taking it better going forward. Better going forward.
Absolutely. And with what Deb was saying, yeah, I agree with that. But there's much more to it than that. Hello, Dex. Um, Life is. I mean, again, this goes back to, and I want to put this question out here. What do you want from literature? I mean, this is a book podcast, live get together in Second Life. Um, what are you looking? Are you looking for a thrilling story? Do you want to be transported to another world, another culture? Do you want to know more about uh, how people relate to each other? Do you want to fly into space? When we talk about genre. Um, but literature uh, is uniquely able, and I was thinking about this, Charlotte, the other day because we never talk about plays. And I do read plays. I don't go to the theater at all. I'm ashamed to say, but I read a lot of plays. I read S- Bertolt Brecht, my staple from the Marxist side. But I love to read plays because plays are very stripped down and they go to the heart of the matter. They are able to transport truths um, as it relates to the human condition that sometimes even a sizable maximalist novel can't. And I don't know why. Again, I always say, like, the weird thing is this is all magical to me because I don't have an academic background, but I just feel that stuff on a visceral level. And when we talk about, I want to do my little reading here of The Seven Madmen by Roberto Arlt. This is a novel from 1929, and it is about a person who is ostensibly um, losing his mind. His name is Erdosain or Erdosain, and he is the book starts with him saying that he's a thief, and he took 600 pesos from his employer, and he gets found out, and the employer says you have 2 days to bring back the money, and then he goes out in the street, and his interior monologue is you know kind of, I guess you could say, bipolar. I mean, he vacillates very quickly between feeling in tune with the world to rejecting it. And again, this is a novel from 1929, and it has a lot to do with cities. So this is in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and the cities, the way he describes it in relation to Erdogan going through the town and experiencing things is incredible. It's very surreal, but you can feel that the city oppresses him, the noise oppresses him, the speed of capitalism. Here we go again. again, 1929, I find it so exciting to read something from that time where a an author that is so good with words can just speak uh, my mind as I often feel, and I can't articulate it when I'm on the bus and I see people who are going to and from work, and they, you feel like these people are not really alive, quite frankly. And that's, in the common colloquial, you would say, "Oh my God, I went to this place on the subway, and people coming from work, they look like zombies." Yeah, but in the hands of a writer, who a poetic writer like Roberto Arlt, this becomes 20, 30 pages of visceral, um, a really kind of kinetic, um, world of pain that he articulates. Um, I should have a quick slide with Arlt's biographical information, but I don't think I have. But basically, Roberto Arlt was also the is regarded as the father of magical realism by some. Um, Garcia Marquez came after him, and many others. So this book then continues, and it's really strange because it's so surreal. And he imagines, while he is on the bus, he imagines that a millionaire adopts him, and the millionaire is just waiting for him, and the millionaire will see him in his pain and will adopt him and give him money and a good life. And then in his mind, as he's on this bus, he talks to himself in his mind about, oh, I need to look a certain way because the millionaire is looking out for me, waiting to meet me, and if I look not desperate enough, the millionaire will reject me. And so it's that kind of book of the main character Erdosain, um, who I can relate to very much. But then again, he also then becomes more and more mad, and he considers murder, and he considers murder in his mind just to shake things up, to get out of a rut and have a new revelation to life. That's how he sort of justifies the murder. And he gets to a point where one could say, well, okay, he stepped over the ledge of acceptable um, pain, and now he's actively considering harming other people and harming society. But then, as a reader, you're conflicted. At least I'm conflicted because this is such a powerful story. Because you can see how he is corrupted and destroyed by the world around him, by the fast moving world that where money and fame and everything is valued highly, and he feels inadequate. Again, this is a very common theme in a lot of novels. But the interesting thing is that this is so situated in that time in Argentina. So it's also very specific to this place. He then goes on to, and I'm gonna read a little excerpt. Um, the main character Erdosain meets the astrologer, and the book is also very funny. The astrologer is a guy who believes the revolution is coming and he wants to be the leader. And this is really funny and also troublesome, and this is also how it really relates to modern times, quite frankly. And there's a long chapter where the astrologer says, well, they ask the astrologer, so how are we going to be this sort of cult where people follow us? I mean, what's our agenda? Like, where are we situated in the political realm? And he says, who cares? I don't know. Are we left? Are we right? Are we Mussolini or who are we? It doesn't matter. We're just going to throw everything in there and we're going to please absolutely everybody and we'll just make it up as we go along. Again, I'm relating the plot to you, but this chapter is written so brilliantly where he basically lays out coming up with strange conspiracy theories to feed the need for people to belong somewhere. And you read this today in 2024, and you have to think of QAnon. You have to think of all these online phenomena. You have to think of Bitcoin, quite frankly, as well, and the right wingers, the right wing libertarians who love Bitcoin, and because he also in the book, the astrologer talks about how to finance this revolution um, that he has in mind, and it's through uh, brothels, actually, but also through technology. So the fear of technology taking over is a big theme in this book. Erdosain, the main character, is a frustrated inventor. He has some ideas, but he doesn't have the funding. He has a really strange idea of making a copper rose, taking roses and then coating them with copper, uh, and then selling that, and it's absolutely strange. It's really just kind of a random product. I mean, I think the symbolism to me with this copper rose that he's completely obsessed by figuring out a machine that creates these copper roses is him, Erdogan, this quote unquote loser as he perceives himself, to play the game of capitalism. So he has an idea to coat roses in copper where you know you look at it like, okay, so what do you want to do with that? Well, it's great because I can do it and it's going to sell because it's so fantastic. And so he is in this delusion of becoming an entrepreneur. So this is another aspect of it. But going briefly back to the astrologer, who wants to be this leader, this is really a very instructive and very timely theme of this sort of nihilism that he displays of just wanting to lead the masses. And he's completely cynical about the masses. And again, he doesn't even, there's no goal. There's no goal of, uh, either right or left that he has. He has no conception of what to do better in society according to his ideology. There is no ideology. It's all nihilism. It's all about just being the number one, leading the masses. Where to is completely irrelevant. And to read something like that today, like I said, I'm repeating myself, something from 1929 from Argentina, from an Argentine writer, it's just incredible how this sort of relates and how these themes are just timely, and they're floating around, irrelevant of the time. So should I read a little funny passage? Because with all the strange and serious themes, it's also really, really funny, I think. And of course, this book came out in Rick Harsh's Corona Samizdat publishing house. And by publishing house, I mean it's his house, it's his apartment in Isola, Slovenia. Um, and it's just fantastic. And he sold this for 10 euros. It's now 20 euros. This let me say one more thing. You can see on the cover here the seven madmen and the flamethrowers. So Roberto Arlt, this is one novel, but it came out in two pieces. And the second piece was never translated from Spanish until a self-taught guy by the name of Larry Riley, worked on it for 15 years to translate it from Spanish to English, and Rick is the first person who published these both parts of this one novel in one volume. So the Seven Madmen is translated into German, but nobody bothered with the continuation. Although at the very end he says, this is going to be continued. But there was a 2-year gap, so Roberto Alt sold the first half because he wanted, he needed the cash, and so up to this day, before Rick published them both in one volume, nobody really bothered to have them both in one. So the translator, Larry Riley of the Flamethrowers, he didn't speak Spanish. What happened to him, this little anecdote that I'm going to read. Larry Riley came across the Seven Madmen, read it, was completely enamored by it, and heard that the Flamethrowers is basically the continuation of the story with the same characters, fleshing it out much more, going into the revolutionary part where they actually do the revolution. And he couldn't find an English copy. Now, you know what this guy, Larry Riley, a postal worker, what he did? He taught himself Spanish over the course of 15 years. He taught himself Spanish, and he translated the Flamethrowers. It's absolutely amazing. And Rick, who is a fan of Roberto Arlt, again with the serendipity, I don't know the details, but he wrote in the preface that he then met Larry Riley, or Larry Riley was introduced to him, and Rick said, "Wait a minute, I didn't even know that there was a translation. I always wanted to have these both in one volume." And Larry Riley's translation of this, amateur translator, was vetted by the actual translator of the first book. Forgot her name, but she said, "Hey, that's fine. It's good." They corrected a lot of mistakes, and here we go. And they published it. So my little excerpt here is from the beginning, where Erdosain, the main character, again, he has been found out to have embezzled 600 pesos, and he is distraught because they give him basically 1 day to bring back the money. He doesn't have the money anymore. He spent it. He gave it away. And so he's walking around, and he bumps into a guy by the name of I didn't write Ergueta. And Ergueta is a store owner. And Erdosain thinks like, "Oh, this guy has money. He can give me the money. He can give me the money." So he sits down with him at this cafe, and they start talking. And the store owner, Ergueta, talks about how he married a prostitute who used to be a maid, and that caused a lot of trouble in his family. So he got rid of his wife, married this prostitute, and he just keeps talking about all this stuff, and then he starts talking about the Bible, and Erdosain gets a little nervous and a little antsy because he wants him to give the money. He waits to find an opening, and the guy Ergueta just keeps talking about this weird stuff, how he dealt with his family when they found out that she was a prostitute, and so on and so forth. And then he talks about how he gambles and how he found out a bulletproof way to win at roulette. And he tells Erdosain that, and Erdosain has no idea what he's talking about, and that's where I'm going to pick it up. Erdosain is just, again, waiting to ask Ergueta for the money, but he has to be patient because obviously Ergueta is somehow going insane. Here we go. Erdosain had not understood. He suppressed a laugh as his hope grew, for there was no denying that Ergueta was mad. So he replied, "Jesus knows how to reveal secrets of gambling to those whose souls are full of light." Yeah. but also to idiots, argued Argueta, looking at him mockingly and winking with his left eye. Since I've gotten into these mysteries, I've done some hair-raising things, for instance, marrying that dummy. Well, are you happy with her? To believe people are good when everyone is out to get you, to label you as crazy? Erdosane frowned in impatience. Then, why shouldn't they think you're crazy? You were, as you yourself put it, a great sinner. And then suddenly you hear some divine call, you marry a prostitute because it's written in the Bible, you talk about the fourth seal and the pale horse. Sure, people are going to think you're crazy because you don't know anything at all about these things. Didn't they call me crazy too because I said they should set up shops to dry clean and dye dogs and metalize shirt cuffs? But I don't think you're mad. No, I don't think so. Your problem is you have too much life. You have too much love and neighborly feeling. Now, about Jesus revealing to you the secret of roulette, that's going a bit far. But wait, both times I won 5,000 pesos. So what? What saves you isn't the secret of roulette, but the beautiful soul you have. You're someone who can do good, have mercy on some poor wretch about to go to jail. That's the truth, Argueta interrupted. And look, there's another pharmacist in town who's an old miser. His son stole 5,000 pesos from him, and later the son came to me for advice. You know what I told him? To blackmail his father, saying he sent him to jail for selling cocaine if he tried to report the crime. Ah, see how I understand you? You want to save the old man's soul by making the son commit a sin which he'll repent his whole life long. Isn't that it? Yes, because in the Bible it's written, and the father shall rise up against the son, and the son against the father. See? I understand you, Argueta. I don't know what future fate awaits you. The destiny of man is always uncertain, but I believe a magnificent road stretches before you. You know, a strange road. I shall be the king of the world, can't you see it? I will win at every roulette wheel, all the money I could want. I will journey to Palestine, to Jerusalem, and rebuild the great temple of Solomon. Yeah, and you will save many good people from misery. How many are there who, from dire need, steal from their bosses, for instance? Take the money that is given into their keeping, you know. Wretchedness, a wretched man doesn't know what he's doing. Today he robs 1 peso, tomorrow 5, the next day 20, and before he knows it, he owes hundreds of pesos. And so the man thinks, it's not much, and suddenly it's 500 that's disappeared. No, 600 pesos and 7 cents. You see? Those are the people who must be saved, the wretches. The pharmacist thought a minute. A somber expression came over his puffy face. Then he agreed coolly. You're right. The world is full of stupid wretches. But what is to be done? That's what worries me. How can we share the sacred truths with those of little faith? Well, but if what people need is money, not sacred truths. No. That's what happens when man will not heed the word of God. A man who bears within him the sacred truths doesn't rob his boss, defraud his company, get himself into a spot where he could go to jail overnight. Then he scratched his nose pensively and continued. Besides, who's to say it's not all for the best? Who will make social revolution if not the embezzlers, the wretches, the murderers, the swindlers, all those low-life types shoved down to the bottom with no way out? Or do you think revolution will come from the shopkeepers and journalists? Okay. But while we wait for the revolution, what is that poor man supposed to do? Me,
so many ways. Just a little trick to keep our heads above water. But now I'm not afraid anymore. Life, oh life, there's nothing to fear from you. Life, let me know if I can be of any help. Life, you and I, let's try a fresh start today. What do you say? Let's close the door on the past. Oh life, there's nothing to fear from your life. Let me know if I can be of any help. Life, you and I, let's try